You can talk to yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can just yes, and you can also probably choose on previous courses and other social coordinators. I've never touched it as well. So we'll get each other. Yes. Awesome. Thank you guys for coming. You keep his shirt, he keeps his word, and for once he let go of your fears, your ghosts. One step, not much, but it's said enough. You kiss on sidewalks, you fight, then you talk. One night he wakes, strange look on his face, pauses, then says, "You're my best friend," and you knew what it was. He is in love.
Okay. Hi, so my name's Anusha. I'm one of the directors of instruction for GDSC. I'm also interning for Slugworks, which is a creator space in the basement of Basket Engineering 1. And so one of the initiatives that we're trying to do is host these design classes where you can learn about a topic. And these classes are led by students who in a previous quarter take a class, design a class basically based on a skill that they're interested in, build a project for you to learn from. So if you're a first or second year and you're interested in learning about virtual reality or cybersecurity and you want to have a project related to those topics, CMPM 17, which is called will be open for enrollment at the same time as enrollment for other classes. It's a 5-credit class. 2 sections. One will be for virtual reality, the other for cybersecurity. It's a really cool opportunity, so I think you should definitely look into taking that if you have space in your schedule. My email is at the bottom of the whiteboard, so if you're interested in speaking to the instructor of the course, you can email me for more information. Thank you. Enjoy the workshop.
Thank you, Nusha. We'll be getting started. My name is Matthew Joseph. I'm also Director of Instruction.
And hi, I'm Alexander. I am GDSC lead.
And thank you for coming to today's event. We'll be talking about Firebase, which is very, very useful if you want to develop a personal project from just developing it from your local file to actually putting it into the World Wide Web and letting people around the world and your friends use it. So today, the agenda will be what is Firebase and how can we use it? How can you actually, what are the applications, how Firebase can help you? Then we'll be adding Firebase to Python. So in the beginning, I'll be doing slides about what services Firebase can offer to you. And then Alex will take over and do an actual demo of Firebase and using the service that I'll be talking about. So that'll be the second half of today's event. And at the end, we have a feedback form. We'll be giving away a JBL speaker. So please don't leave for that. Please attend. Please stay till the end. And if you fill out a feedback form, you'll be entering a raffle for that event, for this raffle. So what is Firebase? Firebase is a file platform where you can do a lot of services. Firebase database, Firebase database, file storage, functions, hosting, we'll get all of that data that is making sense for you. Well, why should you use Firebase? Firebase has a very small setup for a very huge capability and for almost no cost at all for small projects. A lot of platforms, not like Google Cloud platforms, are there's a lot of features, a lot of clutter in it. And while it is very useful for if you want to do Python, Kubernetes, and some machine learning, or for enterprise purposes, that's not what you guys are. You guys are just students like us and trying to just develop a website that you guys can work with solutions. Google Cloud platform and Firebase removes all the fluff and just gives you all the features you need in a very easy. Setup is very simple. All you need is just a config file. Sometimes if you're doing React.js web apps, you need npm install. But aside from that, it's very simple. They give you a you don't have to take very easy to it. And they do very simple project solution. You have 20 and you want everyone to have access to all database, including everything. You viewer, vendor, and all in a very simple. You sort of other stuff is very cumbersome. For example, we started you see there iOS and web app, or you can do the name of Flutter. Firebase really good at do you can allow multiple applications in one project because you have an iOS app and a web app. You can put up one project. And then with that, what you put out the workshop yeah, analyze build, release, analyze engagement. We'll be going through a lot of build because that's more of it. Database and authentication for it. But release, analytics, and engagement are very useful to your project. Does very well. And the product engagement, you will see where when are you different part we can one time and you put the project very well. You're possible to see where you want to time. So the first step we're going to is Firebase. Firebase is almost a fundamental to the application. It is a NoSQL database. What I mean for you. So you don't need to set up the data. I need like these keys, and that's the only thing that we can do. It's very frequent. All of this comprised of just collections. Collection is continuous document, and documents have subgroups. And so documents and so example project I have for myself. So this is community you see another it's a very three-point way of storing the data out. The next one is authentication. This will actually convert make your website very powerful from just a one user application to what people use that. It allows for very different methods, email, password, to phone, anonymous, and Google. But it doesn't just stop there. They have a whole fleet of very better but it's more traditional and all very simply integrated. Also go to well, but just use their API, it's called one function, and you want to develop one function. On the right, and show the data and it's very and also provide the user hosting is very important. Firebase is allowed you to use your websites through the terminal and Firebase. Oftentimes, we platform because it's a very cumbersome process to employ your website. Database set up and connect everything. All you can do for Firebase is just one Firebase deploy. Once you do that, it's all integrated where you see the two domains you can access. You know, you can put information there. And I think we're very let's say you put a new feature and it's not going so well, and you automatically roll back to the previous services that we Firebase has Firebase function is my first favorite. It's basically a whole bunch of listener functions that will listen to new data that requires or built-in database and will trigger when you have for example, when you have if your application is something for storing classes and class information that you can see, you have to add it to do a quick Firebase function connected to multiple Firebase connected to Firebase and so you only do extra entity storage, you go file for a lot of just so all the files very low. That's the analytics, like I mentioned before, there's smart you have engagement most of the time small projects there's a very high impact on when you start getting to like you set up account without A/B testing, which is very useful. Let's say you are your application looking ahead in the market, which were not as well. You want to compare how you will react to it. You can have it, let's say 25% happen to A, while 75% happen to B. You can see how use that application for how the use are with A, are they using more, are they using less, and you can use the positive higher or much lower. I think with that, I'll hand off to Alex.
Awesome. All right. So we're gonna do a little walkthrough demo. Kind of give you guys some practice experience with some of these Firebase solutions that Matthew says kindly walk us through. We're gonna have this follow-up slide on the screen. I'm also going to be taking my laptop and coding it with you. For now, if you want to follow on the slides yourself, feel free to scan that code there. And while I get the new display set up, feel free to sign over this command on any terminal to install a Firebase admin Python library. So what we're going to start with is just creating just a blank Python file. You can do that in VS Code. You can do that on a node file. As long as you have something that you can run Python with, you should be good. And then on a terminal, like the VS Code terminal, your command line, anything like that, run here. It's called Firebase admin. And if anyone has any issue with that install, please raise your hand and we will have to help you out with that. But for now, give me 1 second and I will get the screen set up.
Well, if you have any questions,
All right. So was everybody able to create a Python file and run this command? Did anyone run any issues? Do they need a little bit more time? Yeah. Okay. We'll give it 2 minutes. All right. Has everybody got their Firebase admin installed? Did anyone run into any issues? Okay, that's great to hear. We did have a few issues in practice, but I'm glad that everyone got it installed. Okay, so to start off, we're all going to head to the Firebase console. So that looks like this. So this is at console.firebase.google.com. If you just look up Firebase console, we're bringing to that. And we're going to go ahead and create a new project. I'll give a few minutes for everybody to get to the screen. Is everyone having trouble accessing the Firebase console? All right, awesome. You can give it a name. I'm just going to call it GDSC Firebase Demo. And continue. Feel free to enable Google Analytics. We're not going to go over it in this demo, but if you want to keep messing around with this file, feel free to keep it enabled. I'm just going to disable it for now. But again, if you do want to keep experimenting after we go through our demo, feel free to enable that. It'll take a few seconds for everything to install. In the meantime, is anyone having any setup issues? Is anyone having any questions? If so, please raise your hand and let us know. Is everybody able to make it to Firebase console and create any projects? Yeah. Is anyone not on the Firebase console page? On the browser. Okay. You have a few more seconds to make sure everybody's on. Okay. Once your project is creating, you'll be on the Firebase console for your project. Does anyone need a little bit more time to create their project? Is it still building? Okay. So this is the Firebase console. So as I was saying, it's very, very clean, very intuitive, unlike a lot of other cloud platforms. If you ever look at any cloud platform, even to me, at least, like, absolute mess. There's so many different services, so many different options, many of which you won't need for small scale projects. But Firebase is a little straight line. And straight from the homepage here, we can get started by adding a new app. So, as you can see on our slides here, we're gonna get started by adding Firebase to our app. If you click this little web icon here, this will take you to the setup page for adding Firebase to your app. So you can give your app a little nickname. Again, I'm just gonna go with GDSC Firebase demo. If you would like to host your project in the future, you can check this Firebase hosting box, but you can also set it up later. So I'm not gonna click it for now. If that's something you're interested in doing, if you want to experiment in Firebase more, feel free. For now, I'm gonna register the app. Give it a few seconds. Okay. And then, as we were saying in the presentation, Firebase is really, really easy to add to a project. All you need is a project file. Because we are creating a project right now, automatically the communication for a script config file, but we are not using JavaScript to make sure you guys some Python. So you're getting this, when it works with building a JavaScript project with a web app in the Firebase, what is what is Firebase, and it's copy this code to Firebase. And that's it. And you connect to the Firebase. Really, really, really simple. Okay. Has everybody created a web app? Has anyone run into any issues? Okay, cool. From here, we're going to learn how to connect to our Python script. So, to connect to our Python script, we're going to go up and select this little gear icon that's a project overview. And we're going to head over to our project settings. So that is, again, project overview. Click on the gear and go to project settings. All right, in project settings, you see a bar of tabs at the top. And we're going to go to service accounts. Give it a second to load. And this is some SDK configuration scripts for a few different languages: Node, Java, Python, and Go. We're working with Python today. I'm going to switch over to Python. We're going to copy over this code into our Python file. So this is imported that Firebase admin library that we just installed. And then anyone doesn't know what PIC is? Can anyone tell me? Does anyone know what PIC stands for? Will anyone say that louder? Yeah? Yeah, it's the Python package manager. I honestly don't know exactly what PIP stands for, but yes, pip is a Python. So we are installing the Firebase admin package with pip, and now that'll allow us to use it within our file. So, is anybody not on the screen yet? All right, cool. So, don't leave it yet, but you can copy paste that code over into your Firebase, into your Python file, and you should see that your import here is all green, and it shouldn't have any wavy lines under it. One sec, I'm gonna try to zoom in for you guys, because I know people in the back might have a little bit of a hard time seeing. Okay. I'm gonna look for you guys. Is that code size good? Can you guys see in the back? Awesome. Okay. So notice how on this code is asking for a path to our service account key JSON file. What is that? if we go back over to our Firebase console, you'll see a big blue button here to generate a new private key. And the way a lot of APIs work is by converting that you generate from the API website to an API key within your script. So we're going to generate a new private key here, and that will install for you a JSON file that if you were building a project that you're going to host, you can have a secure path to that JSON file in place of this path to service account key.json file path. But what we can do for this demonstration is, because JSON files are one-to-one equivalent to Python dictionaries, we can just copy paste over the contents of that JSON file in between the parentheses here. So once you've downloaded that JSON file, you can open it up in VS Code or wherever and copy paste over this dictionary. It has a bunch of items here, including your private key. Again, this is a little bit of practice. You don't want to do everybody, but because it's just a little test app, we're all going to be working solo. I don't think we'll be doing it deployment, but if you do, make sure it changes to a path so that nobody can interfere with your API key. But we can just paste that dictionary in here. So now, what is this code doing? We have a few lines here. We are importing Firebase admin and we're importing credentials. So we're creating a credentials object that we'll use to initialize our Firebase app. So this line here, Firebase admin.initialize app, which takes in our credentials as a variable, will mean that Python is fully set up and connected to our Firebase app. And specifically, the Firebase app that we created. So this is how we connect a specific Python script to a specific Firebase project using this API key. So if you run this code now, you shouldn't run any errors. It's not going to get any output, but you should get any errors. How are we doing here? Is anybody a little bit behind? Is there a little bit more time to catch up to this step? How are we feeling? We're going to need a little bit more time to get this Firebase credential into your Python scripts. Okay, give it about another minute. As we're waiting for that, you can take a look at the next step we're going to do. So Firebase admin is the admin side Python library for Firebase. So it has access to a lot of the server side tools that you'll need to interact with Firebase app. That includes what we're going to do in this demonstration, which is uploading and retrieving data from Firestore, and then also creating and logging in user accounts with Firebase off. So we're going to want to import those two objects as well. So if you want to add on to your script from Firebase admin, import Firestore, import off. So you can add these as two new lines, or you can also just comma Firestore, comma off. Up to you. But as long as you're importing Firebase Firestore and Firebase off, then you're all set. Now, you're going to see just how easy it is to create a user and log someone in using Firebase off. So, obviously, if you're building a web app, you might need to have a little infrastructure set up, need to create a UI for logins. You might want to get a little protection hiding password and stuff in it. But if you're just testing out Firebase to see how to use it in this case, we're just going to do some prompt commands. So we can print the prompt to please create your account. And then we can get an email and password to Python's input. And then all we do is pass those inputs to the object. So we'll give everybody a few minutes to copy down this code, and then we'll go into a little bit more depth to explain exactly what's going on with this off creation. In the meantime, does anybody have any questions about the demo so far or about Firebase in general? If you do, please feel free to raise your hand. Okay. So, as you're getting to that, we go over a little bit more on this all about creating. Normally, when we're passing variables to a function, we just pass in the variable, right? But here you can see we have email, and that's because we're setting specific parameters in the creative to our variables. So, you can get a user that so in Firebase with so many consumers, I'm not you can log in with any type of OAuth service, Google, Discord, Facebook. You can also log in with a phone number, and if you scroll over the pop-up create user function here, you can see all the parameters that it can take. So you can take a UID, a display name, email, verified email, phone number, photo, URL, password, app instance. There's a ton. So in this case, we use email and password. We can specify email and password. So once you got this set up, we can run our code and create a new account. So make sure that you put in a well-formatted email. I'm just going to use my email. And let's see how this goes. You enter password. So Firebase has some good things after satisfied the session. It doesn't want you to create password with 256 characters. So make sure you add at least 7 characters to your password here. I'm going to go real secure with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and press enter. Oh, okay. Does anyone have this error? No auth provider? Yeah, okay. So that means you go back to Firebase and activate Firebase log. So I want to make sure everybody has this code down. Does anybody still need a little bit more time to get these input lines down? Yeah, okay. Give it a few seconds. We're also up on the screen here, so I'm going to move this one over back to our Firebase console. And now we can talk about the build settings here. So this bar here are all of the main options that Firebase has. For this demo, we're going to be focusing on Firebase database and authentication, but feel free on your own time to explore all of the different options that Firebase has for you. So for now, we're going to head over to authentication, and we're going to add the authentication service to our Firebase project. So we click the get started button here. Give it a few seconds to load. We can choose what provider we want to allow you to plug in. So it will up you create an entirely new authentication. In this case, we're just going to email password. So go ahead and click on email password and enable this up here. Don't bother with the email, how people sign in. If you want to toy around with that, you can. For now, we're just going to enable typical old email password and press save. And now we have our authentication dashboard. As you see currently, we have no users. But once this is set up, when we go back to our Python script and run it again, let's see if we see anything different this time. All right, we don't have an error. So now, if we go back to Firebase and do a little refresh, we should see, if we go back to users, there we go. Now we see I need to log in. So you can see my email. You can provide that which is email password in this case. It's based on an icon. If I log in with Google, you can see Google Sheet. You can see when I was created. And we can also Firebase automatically assigns every user a unique user ID, which is very, very useful because say if you're super proud of this thing, email, or if you're not using email login and you're using this like someone from login, want to make sure that all of you have some sort of use and Firebase automatically take that for you. So you can see if you want to log in and create another new account, we can do, I don't know. Let's do this one. Refresh the app. We can again see that new and of course, it's different. It doesn't show up the password. That is hidden. Firebase is very, very secure. And that's really all it is to volume it. It's really, really simple. Okay. Does anybody need a few minutes to get to this point? Is there any questions? Okay. Let us move on to the follow-up, shall we? Okay. So as you can see, we got our users, our Firebase console. And now we're going to see and ensure from our code side that we created. So we have this little try except else block here. Does anyone know what try except does in Python? That's the thing that for it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So just to repeat that a little bit louder, try except for else blocks will run the code for the try block. If it comes to error, it'll print within the except. Otherwise, it'll print within the else. So what this code is doing here is prompting the console for an email input, and then trying to get that user by email from our authentication service. We get an error, as in that account doesn't exist. Then we print that there's an error when we did. Otherwise, we print out the one email and the ID. So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes, copy down this code and try it out yourself as I do it on my screen over here. And also, if you don't want to keep creating a new account each time that you run the code, feel free to comment out that previous account creation code here, which is what I'm going to do. By the way, if anyone's using VS Code, command/comment out all selected code, which is something I learned way too late in life. And I have a lot of fun just doing this over and over again. All right. As you can see here, because of IntelliSense, we can see all of the things that we can all these options. As we've been kind of drilling into, guys, Firebase is super fun. You can do a ton of it, very, very little overhead. In this case, we're just going to try to get user by email. Pass in our email, and again, we're passing in a specific parameter. So we're going to do email equals email. Except okay. And I'm not sure, do you guys know what Python F strings are? Do you have a So, give it another few minutes for you to learn to do that. And then we'll test this out. Yeah, that was real. So that would probably be done. So Firebase has its own built-in like password sanitation stuff. But if you want to go a little bit further with password sanitation, like ensuring symbols and uppercase and lowercase, there might be options to do that on the Firebase console. I'm not fully sure, but you can also do that on your own code. So you can sanitize the string. You can read that string out, make sure it passes whatever parameters you want, and then pass it to Firebase. So if you want to do your own password authentication, you can analyze the string first before you even pass it to Firebase. And if it doesn't pass whatever parameters you want to give it, then you can just send back your own error and have it as something that Firebase will accept. But I do think that there are that Firebase and really the thing with Google Plus in general is that there's a ton of really good documentation on them. So I'm gonna link you guys at the very end of this lecture the documentation for the Firebase admin library. And there's also very robust documentation for basically any platform that you want to develop Firebase. Okay, let's start writing this code, shall we? All right, so prompting us for email here. I logged in my UCC ID, so I'm gonna type that in. And we see that we didn't get an error. It's not without saving with that long string as my UID. And if we go back to the Firebase console, we can confirm that that is in fact my user ID. Now, if we try this out with, say, a random string of characters, this is an account. Even if it's an email, which could technically be valid, we're still going to get an error. I'm logged in with two accounts. I logged in with my personal email as well. So we can run this again. ecoloredo@outlook.com. And as you can see, that logs us in fine and passes me back my unique UID, which you can see right here. Do you have any questions about authentication? Okay. Lovely. Now, that's not going to be the authentication portion of this demo. To set up Firestore, we're going to do something similar like we did with activating authentication on our Firebase console. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to comment out all of my previous authentication code because I just don't want to run it through every time that we keep running the script. But heading back to the Firebase console, we can return to the build menu. And now select the Firestore database. So Firebase has two different databases. It has the Lookup database and the Firestore database. The Firestore database is, as Matthew was talking about, a NoSQL collection document-based database. So essentially the way it works, which I'll show you after I set it up, on this home screen here, select the Create Database button. And now from here, we have our default database ID, and we can select the physical location that our data will be stored at. So, say for example, we have 20 users in Taiwan. Obviously, it would be better to store that data because there's less latency when you try to access the data. In our case, we're on the US, and we are lucky to be the only users of our app. So let's select the default United States location for our data store. All right, select next. And then we have the option to set our rules to our Firebase database. We're just going to start in test mode, and this will allow any read and write requests for the next one. You can always go back and change these rules. I will show you where in a second, but this just allows us to, without any barriers, read and write the database as test users. And you can change that right here if you want. And you can also change it at any time. So it's going to provision some data for us in the data center. And then we get met with a Firestore screen. As I was mentioning, if you do want to change those rules, you can sit up here and change those. But what we're most interested in here is data. So in Firebase, as I was mentioning, it is collections and documents. Collections are just a list of documents, and documents can have fields of basically any data type you have. Strings, booleans, arrays, dictionaries, physical maps, and products that are good. Then documents can have sub-collections. So for example, say you have some kind of app where you want to have a document with each class and CSC, and then maybe you have fields like professor name, class size, all of that. And then you have a subcollection that has the user IDs for all the students that are enrolled in that class. So that would be a collection of classes. And in that collection are documents for each class at ECSC, or where the use cases. And each of those documents with fields that have information about the class, and then a subcollection on top of it that has even more documents, one for each user of the class. And those user objects will, of course, their own fields, and you have the real method that can have it in some collections where it can get a little bit messy if you get really, really far down into collection, nothing. But in this case, we're going to keep it simple and just do one collection with a grid of documents. So we're going to go back over to our code here. We're going to instantiate an instance called Firebase Workshop. That's a little bit of a scary sentence, but it's a very, very easy line of code. We're just going to assign firestore.client to any variable you want. I'm going to call it DB. That's pretty typical. DB stands for database. So DB equals firestore.client. Oops. And if this isn't working for you, if Firestore is not being recognized, again, make sure that you're importing Firestore up at the top. Awesome. Okay. Do we need a little bit more time to get Firebase set up in the Python script? Okay. Now, if you give me 1 second, I'm going to send you guys some test data. And that test data is going to be in the form of a JSON file. So, as I was mentioning before, we're going to use an example of UCSC classes. So each class will have a course code, course data, if you give me 1 second here, I'm going to send this JSON file to you guys. You're going to use the Genius in Discord. Just give me 1 second, and I will get that sent. This is going to disconnect for a second, but don't fret. Oh, yes. Okay. Okay. I just sent out the code here. So if you guys could be so kind as to either download that file or just copy paste the JSON data, because as we talked about before, JSON is Python. So this specific JSON file is going to look like a list of dictionaries. So let's look through this. So we have a list here of 4 dictionaries. And each dictionary has class code, class name, professors, and then is identified. Does this seem familiar to anybody? Remember we were talking about the collection of documents? But in this case, the collection is a list. And each document is a dictionary in the JSON file. And each field is a key value pair within our dictionary. So once we get this into our Python folder, we can copy paste it and just assign it to a variable. I just called it data. And back here, data equals our big fat dictionary. And now we have this in our code. Does anybody have any trouble accessing this JSON file? Everybody good? Awesome. All right. And then super, super simple. We are going to create a code that goes through this list of dictionaries, and add each one to our Firebase database in a function called courses. So let's walk through this step by step. So for course data in our data. And so we're entering through our data elements here. How many times is this for loop going to run? How many objects are in data here? Can anyone tell me? Remember, this is a list of dictionaries. How many dictionaries do we have? We count it out? 4. Yep, perfect. So this is going to do it 4 times, 1 time for each of our 4 dictionaries here in our test data. So for each dictionary here, what we're going to do is reference our database. So remember, DB is that instance of Firestore that we assigned a variable to earlier. Need a little reminder, that's Firestore.client. DB.collection. And then we can give this function a name by just passing a string. I'll call it courses. And then we're gonna, in that collection, create a document. And then we're gonna set the data for that document to be the dictionary that has all of our course data. So remember, course data is gonna be each of these 4 dictionaries. Each of the 4. So, we have a collection of courses. One that's cool about Firebase is that we don't need to tell it to first create that collection. If we ever try to create a new collection of documents and the name doesn't exist, Firebase will simply create it. So we don't have to worry about create new collecting courses, all of that stuff, or just do it automatically. Beautiful. Can we try running this? Let's give it a shot. All right. It takes a little bit of time. Again, output. But if we go back to Firebase here, we do a little refresh. We should see we now have a collection of courses. And we have 4 documents. Each one has fields that are equivalent to the dictionaries that will be out. You can see the document all very better. Document IDs you can memorize collision errors we set reference them. So if you do not specify anything for documents, which we didn't here, auto-generate random documents, just like it does with UIDs when you're working with authentication. What that means though, is that if we run this code again, we might not necessarily want to add all these documents. Then we make like 1 change to our data, we want to refresh our database. If we run this again, we're just going to get 4 new documents. So what if we want to name our documents? Let's move along and follow along. Okay. From Firestore itself, you can also do data manipulation. So I could create my own document here if I wanted to. I can delete specific documents. I can do whole collections. So for example here, we want a clean slate where we have named documents. So I'm going to click on these 3 dots here. It's like delete collection. We got a little bit of an authentication thing. Also make sure you're not actually including data. You can type in the ID of the collection. Courses. I typed that wrong. I typed it right. Beautiful. Okay. So now we can head on back. There's lots of different options that we can use to get our documents these things. One thing we could do, we could just pass it in one of the elements in our dictionary. So we could pass in course data to our document, and that would name the document whatever our class name is. What I'm going to do in this case is I want a sequential count of all our classes. So I'm going to set the count here of 0. And then on each iteration, I'm going to add 1 to the count. And then set our documents to be that count value. And I'm going to pass it to a string because the documents function here only string details. So give a minute for everybody to catch up here. And we'll run this and see what kind of output we get. That's different from our last output. Much. All right, does anybody have any questions in the meantime? We might a few minutes to get everything caught up. Does anybody have any questions? Anything? Okay, let's start running this. So now, again, we're starting with a blank slate here because I deleted my courses collection. And as we talked about before, even if we have no question for courses, the first time that this is called, it will automatically create the courses collection. And it will not try to recreate it each time because once it already exists, it just knows where to go. So the first loop, it will create the courses collection, and subsequent loops will just reference the already created selection. All right, we run this. We head on that. Now we can see we have our documents numbered. So each one has a unique URI. And because they're not completely randomly generated now, we can make modifications without having to fully add new documents to the database. So it's the exact same content here. We have CSC 20, CSC 13S, CSC 140, and CSC 117. We can try and modify one of these dictionary elements here. You can modify in whatever you want. You could, change the enrollment count of one, do whatever. What I'm gonna do, just so I want to show you guys kind of the breadth of data structures that Firestore can handle, I'm gonna add another list of dictionaries as a field in one of the classes. So let's just do it for CSC 117. I'm gonna have a new field called students. And that is going to be a list of dictionaries. Each of these dictionaries will have the name of the student, the string, and then their year, which is going to be an integer. Again, you don't have to copy down this exact code. You can just try to modify the dictionary wherever you want, and then run it again, and you'll see that instead of creating new files, it will just simply update the existing documents, because like I was mentioning how the collection name like this, the same thing with the documents. So if the document name that you're referencing or this, instead of creating a new one, they'll simply update the existing one. And that's one of the cool things about Firestore, is that it really handles a lot of these edge cases that you might overthink if you are, beginning to understand and learn about database management. Firebase just makes it really, really simple. Here, okay, so now if you run this again, hopefully I didn't have any formatting errors here. Beautiful. Now we can see it updates instantly, and we now have this new students field in document 4. It doesn't not create a picture, it just modifies the system. Quickly, just to look through here, we can see that Firebase is indicating what data type is. If you look a little bit deeper into that array, we can see that each one has a map, which is, as I mentioned, the Firestore language for a dictionary or a hash table. And each of those have two fields. One's a string and one's a number. Okay. Moving on to the last step of our follow along here, we're going to try to query our Firestore database. So we uploaded data, and now we want to come back and access it. So to do that, we can write a Firebase query. I'm going to comment out this for loop here so I don't keep, pushing to the database. Now we just want to read from it. So we're going to create a new object here. We're going to call it query. You can call it whatever you want. But we're, again, similar to as we were before, we're going to specify the collection that we want to access, in this case, courses. This is our last step, so sit tight. And then we're going to use a different solution of where. And where is going to allow us to specify what specific types of documents we want to receive. So I want to see all the classes in my database that are major requirements. So I'm going to specify first the field name that I want to query on is major requirements. And then I'm going to add in the operator that I want to compare. So I'm going to use equals equals. I want to see equal to a value. And then I'm going to add the value that I want it to equal to, which in this case is true. So now, this will give us a query object. From that query object, we can call a stream of data. The stream of data is, I don't know if you use the Python generator before. Yeah. So Python generator will yield data to you on an as-needed basis. And that's essentially what a stream is. In this case, I think we only have 2 documents. So nothing too exciting, no real space saving there. But that is the syntax that Firebase uses. So for doc or document in query.stream, we are going to simply print doc.toDate. So as I was mentioning, the Firestore field layout is equivalent to Python dictionary. You can install the two-point concept and print it out to us as a dictionary. So let's run this code here. And we can see that we get the 2 classes that are in our database that have the is major requirements tag as true. So that's CSC20 and CSC13S. All right, so that's about it for the follow along. If you're curious about expanding on this, learning more Firebase, specifically in Python, you can scan the QR code that will bring you to the Firebase admin documentation. Firebase admin is the library that we're using today, but there are tons of different pages of documentation for any certain language that you did. And that's what we're done. We're going to quickly move on to our feedback form. As I'm doing that, does anybody have any questions? Feedback form, and we'll enter it into a JDL speaker. We're going to give it about 5 minutes for you guys to figure this out. So take your time, answer all the questions, and we'll do a little wheel of names and pick our winner. All right, and as you put that out, if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand, come up, ask away about Firebase, about anything.
If anyone has any more issues after the workshop, and then on our I actually did not be flexible, but I don't know how to interpret it. I
Yeah. We have ongoing resources here at GDSC. If you have any questions about Google products, about the solution challenge, or about anything, you can feel free to give us a message on the Discord. We're all highlighted. Okay. So if anyone did pass all the code that we went through, I'm going to send that Python file that I just created so that you can reference that in unintentional. No one saw it. spending more time.
Anyone else need more time for the feedback form?
If so, raise your hand or hold your peace.
On the real name.
All right, can we get a drum roll for real names? You're the winners. I love it. All right. As soon as possible.
Thank you guys for coming. We have it in this Wednesday for the challenge.
Yeah, I think it's good. Enjoying the 60 challenge for this meeting with all the people been working on. Please come to us on Wednesday. That'll be a great option to learn about it and perhaps go and see it. So if you're interested in that, please come to events in the free market. Yeah, on Wednesday.
Thank you for coming.
Beautiful. Congrats. All right, let me get you.
Oh, yeah. You just name.
Yeah, those are
Email and have address.
email or whatever you want. Publish.